stuff we hate.
Okay.
Welcome, Daleks, Thals, and humans, to the 121st episode of an Unearthly podcast. Streaming live on the 26th of August, 2015, and featuring Doctor Who and the Daleks, written by Milton Subotsky. If you haven't watched episode 120, either you weren't at geekcon and are not watching us on YouTube, or we didn't get episode 120 up on YouTube fast enough. I am Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, and with me are Mad Matt Winchell.
I'm editing.
Randy Ronson McCulloch.
Always a pleasure.
And Tim the Enchanter Sheridan.
Tim?
Is there a Tim? Tim, will you stand up, please?
We're dropping like flies here. Not sure what's up with Tim, but Aaron is not with us due to feeling a little down after this past weekend's GeekCon, which of course is where we had our 120th episode.
Yeah, Aaron's got the con crud.
I'm not sure how, but I managed to avoid it. I'm hoping it's the greens.
I haven't gotten it yet, and I'm going to have to run out tomorrow to get an extra thing of orange juice just to be on the safe side.
Probably should.
How was the con otherwise this year?
Remarkably smooth.
Yes.
We literally, all of us on staff, were sitting around waiting for the other shoe to drop. And other than some little, mild to moderate, issues that we were able to, fix in at most a few hours, really nothing went wrong.
So there was no stomping through the floor looking for equipment heads to remove this year?
No, apparently since the con collectively cut the head off that Hydra earlier this year, the new head did get everything I needed. Not everything I wanted, but everything I needed.
Yes.
Hello?
There's a Tim.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I tried to unmute my mic and it wouldn't let me.
Huh.
Weird.
That's why I'm glad my headset has a manual mute-unmute. But no, the con did not seem to have any issues. We had our bridge simulator had some trouble getting everything connected, and that took a few hours, but it got done.
That's something I should try next time.
The Artemis simulator?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, hopefully next year we won't have as much problem getting both bridges together. And hopefully it will not eat 5 hours of my personal time. Time I was supposed to spend working on the PowerPoint presentation for our podcast, but we still managed to get that thrown together pretty quickly.
Yep.
I had to co-opt Bill to give me a hand, but we got that done, and then we got the podcast done, and Sunday was pretty smooth. Matt got to watch Captain America 2.
Finally, yes.
Nice.
You mean Death Too Soon?
No, we showed that.
We showed that, and actually that got a few people watching because, Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
And no, Matt actually saw Winter Soldier. He had not managed to see in the theaters.
Well, it's not as good as Death Too Soon, but what is?
Other than that, our attendance was up slightly from last year, but not overly so.
Yeah.
I think we got about 200 to 300 more people this year.
It's because I wasn't there.
Keep telling yourself that, Bill.
Mm.
But
Tim, it was your first year going to geekcon, right? How'd you enjoy it?
I enjoyed it very well. I saw some neat stuff on the viewing rooms. I took the Iron Butt challenge.
And passed it.
Yes.
yeah,
And
Matt and I were discussing the Iron Butt Challenge. There were 9 victors this year. Kid gloves have to come off next year.
Oh, are they ever coming off next year? We already have everything we need to run it next year. Journey to the center of the TARDIS is going to be a cakewalk compared to what we got planned for you poor people.
We can't say because, of course, geekcon policy is that we cannot say, and we haven't actually announced it yet. I need to post those articles coming up because I'm actually going to have the 2016 stuff for viewings because I already know a good chunk of what I'm doing.
I'm pretty sure that's one of my bigger chunks. So the rest of it's just kind of, ooh, that sounds cool.
Next year's theme is I find your lack of geek disturbing.
Oh. Star Wars knockoffs. I haven't.
No, actually, it's the main theme is villainy and and villains.
Oh, that's the catchphrase then.
The catchphrase is "I find your lack of geek disturbing."
So does that mean we're getting some of Roger Delgado in the sci-fi room?
Oh hell yes!
Oh hell yeah!
Oh hell yes!
There's gotta be Delgado in there.
My 3 classic showings next year are going to be all 3 master-centric episodes.
Probably the best of each of the masters.
Mm-hmm. And of course, since it'll be season 9 on the overnights, that means it's going to have some Missy too.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a little master loving you on late night.
I'm thinking for main program for Geek Cinema, I am actually going to try to show Star Wars in the machete order.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
Machete order?
Yes, that's 4, 5, 2, 3, and 6.
4, 5, 2, 6. What about 1?
I always heard it was
4,
4, 5,
1.
4. I always
That's
heard it was
my favorite movie ever.
I always heard it was 4, 5, 1, 6, 2, 3.
No, you do not.
Because otherwise, if you do 2, 3 before 6, you're giving away Palpatine's identity.
That's kind of the point. Is you're going.
No, maybe.
You're thinking a different order, Bill.
A little mixed up.
No, it's A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back. Then you flash back to Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. And
I'm thinking it was 4, 1, 5, 2, 3, 6. That's what I was trying to.
No, there's 1 is not included in the machete order because one itself is basically not even really related to 2 and 3.
It's supposed to be the thematic
story.
opposite. It's the Anakin Skywalker at his most innocent thematic point prior to showing how dark he can turn.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's really not needed to tell the story.
Matter of fact, it actually makes even bigger loopholes for the story.
So it's a lot easier to admit it and then show those 5 movies. It's the easiest way to get somebody new into Star Wars, from what I've heard.
Let's see. On my own personal side, I've recently registered to become a student at Western Connecticut State University. So I will be beginning classes as a full-time student on Monday. Hopefully things work out well and there are no problems from that. But definitely going to be an interesting chapter of my life beginning.
I'm waiting to begin hearing Skype calls from Bill going, I can't do the podcast this week because I have homework.
Then you don't know me. I would just do the homework instead of sleep.
That's probably also in lieu of sleep.
Yeah, that's probably already in lieu of sleep, but anyway.
Anyway, let's actually go on to our news, since we've actually taken 10 minutes here on our intros.
Oh, okay.
So we'll start with birthdays. We covered the majority of the Doctor Who birthdays for August last week, but we do have one that just had a birthday. Honor Blackman, who played Professor Lasky in Terror of the Verboids, turned 90 on Saturday the 22nd, while we were all podcasting or otherwise involved in geekcon. She's best known for her roles in Goldfinger and The Avengers. That would be the Avengers TV series, not Marvel's The Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, if we talk about the Avengers in birthdays, and half the time, well,
Majority
okay,
of the
well,
time.
if they're in Doctor Who and the Avengers, it's going to be the British one, not...
Yeah,
no.
I know, but I always like to make it clear because there's
yeah.
always going to be somebody who just hears the Avengers and thinks Marvel.
I would also add that usually when we say the Avengers, it's usually maybe a supporting role or for like maybe one story arc or a couple episodes or something. From what I could tell of her background that I saw in IBM, she's actually one of the main characters. So she was there for a vast majority.
She wasn't the lead actress because that was Diana Rigg.
No, yeah, but she was there for 41 episodes according to the list.
So probably like a lead support.
Mm-hmm. And she also got to play, in her one Bond role, she got to play opposite Sean Connery, so that's pretty high up there.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think she was the first Bond girl to be named after part of the female anatomy.
Yes, Miss Galore. Yeah, that started a chain.
Who are you? My name is Pussy Galore. I must be dreaming.
You know, that did always kind of break my suspension of disbelief about James Bond.
Well, actually, I heard that originally in the script, the line went, "Who are you? I am Pussy Galore." Yes, but what's your name?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm kind of glad they changed that. That was bad.
Yeah, well, the name itself is bad.
The name itself is bad, but that line delivery was even worse. That particular delivery of that line would have been...
What's your name?
Wow, I'm seeing pictures of her recently, and she's starting to look a bit like Betty White.
A bit. Anywho,
next we have other sci-fi birthdays to celebrate. The man in the tin can, Kenny Baker, who played R2-D2, will turned 81 on Monday the 24th. And he played him in all 7 movies.
I actually thought they had replaced him with a drone for this upcoming one, but he's credited on IMDb as still appearing.
I would assume that when they can, if they can get away with it, if it's really too bad, like weather-wise, they probably would replace him with a drone. Otherwise, you still need somebody in there for like the little extra extensions, like limbs and stuff that come out of R2. So
he's probably half the R2 you see these days is CGI. Then again, that was probably true under Lucas.
And not so much this.
Yeah, because Abrams is more fond of practical effects than Lucas.
I am going to say that I hope the drone R2-D2 that we saw at Celebration was not Kenny Baker, because he never came out. And that one was fully functional.
I think that might have been the drone. I can
see him being there for some of the more intricate scenes with the the manipulating arms and such.
Yeah.
Also, film director Tim Burton turned 57 yesterday. He is known for such weird and eclectic films as Beetlejuice, Batman, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and Mars Attacks.
He's also known for, Disney's Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
And the really bad Planet of the Apes movie.
Also, more recently, Frankenweenie.
Yeah, he did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
The one in which Johnny Depp looks like Michael Jackson.
Yes.
Yep.
Question: is it okay to blame a formerly great artist for their latter-day sins?
Yes.
Yes, as long as he learns from these sins and eventually starts doing good things. Because first of all, Frankenweenie was actually pretty good, and that was, I believe, produced if not also directed by him. And apparently, there's been talk of a recent Beetlejuice 2. So good luck.
Hmm. So another thing, Chris Pine, the new Captain Kirk, turned 35 today.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Chris Pine is in pre-production, I believe, for the next Star Trek movie,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
which is, I think, due out. Is it next year or the year after? Somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there.
By the way, it might have been years of growing up watching 30-year-olds play teenagers, but I never got the impression that Chris Pine was even close to 35 until I saw his birthday.
Mm.
Watching those movies, I would have sworn he was in his 20s.
Well, he's.
I always thought he looked way too young to be on the Enterprise, but apparently he's. I'm going to blame the fact that I grew up watching 30-year-olds play teenagers with attitude.
Well, mind you, the first Star Trek movie was in 2017. It's 2015. So, backing that truck up, he would have been
Okay, that's a good point.
27 in the original Star Trek movie, and
it has been a while,
31,
too.
32 in Into Darkness.
That could be it as well.
Might have been it, yeah.
I was when you said backing that up, I thought you were going to reference this mistake, but you did realize that you just said the first movie was 2 years in the future rather than 8 years ago, right?
2007.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
In the future.
2007. Sorry.
Moving on to our Doctor Who news. This is a bit of a bittersweet victory for an Unearthly podcast, as an episode that was maligned by a majority of our cast caused Doctor Who to lose out in the Hugo Awards. Instead of Doctor Who, the Best Dramatic Presentation Short Form Award was granted to the Orphan Black episode by means which have never yet been tried. Joining us in the losers was Game of Thrones,
which had been consistently beating the pants off of Doctor Who for the past 2 years, if I recall.
Mm-hmm, or trying to.
Yeah.
At least this time, we didn't lose to them again.
And what was the episode again that they... Listen? Oh, yeah, no wonder that lost.
Yeah.
Listen was such a turd.
It was, but
it
was really weird because a lot of people really, really liked it.
I still don't get that.
Yeah, I don't either. I hate it with a passion.
People who like it don't get Doctor Who.
Aaron likes it.
It had a good tone, but once you look a little bit deeper than the surface, everything falls apart.
Actually, the first half of it was pretty good. It was pretty much the second half of it that made me hate it.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Which half was the kid with the blanket over his head?
Had second half.
That's more or less second half, yeah.
Oh wait, no, that was part of the first half too.
I was just gonna say, I think actually that might land more towards the middle.
If you're talking about the kid in the orphanage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was part of the first part.
Yeah, that was kind of towards the middle. It's after that.
It's pretty much after she winds up in Gallifrey's past is where it goes south for me.
Well, that's deep into the second half.
I think that's like the last 10 minutes or so, but the other I think might have been part of the last half before that. Anyway, Doctor Who does have a chance, a new chance to win awards, as it has been nominated for 5 of the British Academy of Film and Television Arts Cymru Awards. That would be Peter Capaldi in Dark Water for Best Actor, Jenna Coleman in Kill the Moon for Best Actress, and I think we can probably agree that despite most of us not liking that episode, it was not her performance that had anything to do with that.
Yes.
No, it was the writing.
Yeah, that was totally the writing.
For Best Editing, Will Oswald was nominated for Dark Water. By the way, so short aside, I have to wonder if his name has anything to do with Clara's name. He has been an editor on the show for 6 years now, or 6 years as of the series that's being up for judging. And if he wins, it will be his third editing BAFTA Wales Award, the previous ones being in 2002 and 2009. For Best Special and Visual Effects is the Christmas special, the effects team behind the Christmas special Last Christmas. And the Series 8 title sequence is nominated for Best Titles and Graphic Identity.
It nominally says Deep Breath, but that's only because that was the first appearance of said titles.
Mhm.
Personally, I don't think they should win for that, but because didn't technically the titles weren't they actually originally written by a somebody on the web that got them retooled?
They were made by a fan. They then hired that fan to retool them. So I'm pretty sure it was the same person.
Same person
That
who got
made
edited,
the
but with
first-
higher budget.
Yeah, so it was essentially a public audition that he didn't know he was auditioning for.
Yep.
So many
I think
people.
the biggest change was that they took the seal of Rassilon out at the end.
There was a little more to it than that. I actually
There
watched.
was more. I think that was the biggest one. I think.
There was the original production scenes revolved around the concept of the fob watch. You see it in the beginning, you see it at the end,
Yeah.
and that whole concept was taken out, including the part where the seal of Rassilon appeared over the watch. No, that whole
Right.
bit was gone. They kept the gears though, which was weird because the whole concept of the gears was you traveling into the watch. Kind of weird.
Meh.
Anyway,
The winners of these awards will be announced on Sunday, 27 September, at St. David's Hall in Cardiff.
So next month,
Yes.
almost a day too. A month and a day.
yep, that's probably why they're announcing it now. They'll give you a month to speculate before actually doing the BAFTA Wales. All right, moving on to our general news. The October 7 showings of Doctor Who's Symphonic Spectacular in New York City, intended to be hosted by Michelle Gomez, have been canceled.
Oh.
While a reason was not announced, Vision 9 has apologized and all orders have been refunded through the method of the original purchase. According to the Barclays Center website, there are no plans to reschedule at this time. By our understanding, these were the only announced showings of the Symphonic Spectacular in the Americas. It would have also been the first time that Doctor Who Symphonic has actually been in North America, if I recall.
Well, they just shot themselves in the foot now.
Yeah. Very, very disappointing if they don't reschedule.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, this was... I mean, they've done regular, Royal Albert Hall, Doctor Who at the Proms for years. And American watchers tended to watch those on, like, YouTube and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a couple of times they were on BBC America as, like, a special. But...
Well, guess what? We're gonna be watching for them this year. YouTube.
Yeah.
Say goodbye to your money. You could have had it.
Well, not my money.
Well, none of us locally, but Tim would have probably been able to go.
Yeah,
Yeah, I could have.
Well, then you wouldn't have.
I
Well,
wonder-
now you don't have to deal with my hate and envy for ages.
Well, that's a good trade-off.
And that's, of course, if they would have succeeded in New York, they might have brought it over to Chicago. And that would have been close enough to get us to it.
Yeah, especially if they had aired it around the time of Chicago TARDIS.
Mmm.
That'd be a good timing.
That'd be
Mhm.
spectacular.
That would have been brilliant. But no, unfortunately, the American Symphonic Spectacular is no more. It has ceased to be.
Kicked the bucket and has gone to see the choir invisible.
It is
Softly
an
into the night.
spectacular.
Right. Well, DoctorWhoNews.net, our primary source of news, is currently hosting 4 worldwide giveaways and 2 available for UK listeners only. All 6 of these giveaways end on Sunday, the 6th of September, and necessitate necessitate sending an email which includes your answer to a trivia question, your name and shipping address, and the fact that you heard of the competition here on an Unearthly podcast. Please read off the source. And you can win Doctor Who and the Ark in Space, the audiobook of the target novelization, if you answer this question. Name the insect-like race that have infested the Ark, as described by Ian Marter in the original target novelization. You can win The Drostan's Curse, an original Fourth Doctor novel written by A.L. Kennedy, if you name the original story by the author upon which The Drostan's Curse is based.
But before you go farther, each one does have a distinct email address and a distinct subject line, so you'll want to include that for anybody who attempts to enter.
All right. So, for the Ark in Space, send your answer to comp-the Ark in CD at drwhonews.net. For the Drostan's Curse book, send your answer to comp-drostanbook at drwho's.net. You can win the audiobook of the Drostan's Curse, read by Claire Corbett, if you answer this. Amongst the several Doctor Who books read by Claire Corbett, name a book which also featured on screen within an actual episode of the series. Send your answer to comp-drostancd at drwho's.net. Human Nature, the audiobook of the original Virgin New Adventure novel by Paul Cornell, read by Lisa Bowerman, can be yours if you name the alien antagonists that are hunting for the Doctor in the novel. Send your answer to comp-humannaturecd at drwhonews.net. You can win the BBC audio of The Gods of Winter, read by Claire Higgins, if you answer, what does the Doctor and Clara's initial mission for Diana Winter involve? Send your answer to comp-godsofwintercd at drwhonews.net. And you can win a copy of The Glamour Chronicles, which are 3 new novels featuring the 12th Doctor and Clara, if you name another BBC book to feature glamour. And the 3 books you can win are Royal Blood, Deep Time, and Big Bang Generation. Please send this answer to comp-glamourbooks at drwhonews.net. I like saying drwhonews.net.
That's glamour spelled the British way with GLAMOUR.
And that's open to UK readers only.
Yeah. The subject lines you'll want to use when entering, if you're looking for the Ark in Space, you want to use the subject line Noah's Ark. If you're looking for the Drostan's Curse, you want to use the subject line Don't Go Into the Bunker. That is open to UK listeners only. For the I'm sorry. There's 2 of the Drostan's Curse. Is that right?
Yes, there is a BBC book version, which is UK readers only. There is a BBC audio version, which is
the audio
open
version
worldwide.
is worldwide. For the audio version, you want to use the subject line Fetch. For Human Nature, you want to use the subject line Mr. Smith, You're Needed. For the Gods of Winter, you want to use the line When Winter Calls, not to be mistaken with Winter is Coming.
Yeah, I know.
Brace yourself.
I'm thinking this might be a typo because for the Glamour Chronicles, they state the subject line When Winter Calls Again. So I guess use that, but I feel like they meant to say something else.
Oh, well. Yeah. Their own fault.
Yep.
Also, the glamour books, by the way, are the ones that we looked at last week that looked really, really nice. As I recall.
With that being the last competition, I'd almost want to change the news order use that as a segue, but it's too late to do that now. So instead, we'll be talking a little bit about the Lethbridge Stewart novels. Apparently, they've been Candy Jar Books has been taking a lesson from GameStop and are announcing a pre-order exclusive.
Arg.
In this case, if you pre-order the next Lethbridge Stewart novel, The Schizoid Earth, you gain the 34-page exclusive story Legacies, written by Norma Ashley. The random chance. That's all it takes to change everything. What would happen had Colonel Lethbridge Stewart and the Doctor failed to stop the Great Intelligence? So it's turn left for the Brigadier. Interesting.
Interesting, but still, pre-order. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pre-order bonus.
I hate pre-order bonuses. Bunch of rubbish. Just put it with the thing originally intended for it.
All right. Well, continuing with books, we have frequently talked about the character of Bernice Summerfield as being a major player in many of the Doctor Who 7th, 8th Doctor novels. Well, she's now going to be featured in a 12th Doctor novel. She will be appearing in Big Bang Generation, a new 12th Doctor novel written by Gary Russell. Paul Cornell, the creator of the character, tweeted earlier today, "I might as well say it. Gary Russell's forthcoming 12th Doctor novel, Big Bang Generation, features Professor Bernice Summerfield." The voice of the Big Finish character, Lisa Barrowman, also tweeted, "Does this make me canon?"
Yes, Bernice.
That's
You've
right,
been canon
because
for a while now.
I think Moffat left Benny's name out of Night of the
That's
Doctor.
right. He did, didn't he?
Yeah, she's not canonized.
She's not technically canonized yet, so this does make her canon.
Well, it's a
Technically,
novel, so novels are really...
No, novels are non-canonical.
Novels are kind of hot and fast canonically, but...
I'd consider her appearances in Big Finish to be more canonical than a 12th Doctor novel, but this does open the door for maybe a Peter Capaldi appearance in the Bernice Summerfield adventures.
Maybe.
Probably not, but we can only hope.
Anyway,
well,
Bernice Summerfield first appeared in Cornell's 1992 novel Love and War, not to be confused with the 2006 piece of crap Love and Monsters.
Yar.
And that was turned into a Big Finish audio play in 2012 and featured the voice of Bowerman as Bernice Summerfield. The character has been a regular fixture.
So much more sense now. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
The character has been a regular fixture in Big Finish's output since 1998. Oh no, it isn't. The very first Bernice Summerfield audio story. Bowerman will lend her voice to the audiobook version of Big Bang Generation.
Ooh.
Oh, now what were you saying about tagline?
The tagline on there, I'm an archaeologist, but probably not the one you were expecting, which of course is a reference to the Night of the Doctor opening. Yep. In this case, it's referring to the fact that Bernice Summerfield is an archaeologist, but fans of the modern Doctor would probably be expecting a different one.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So the concept of the book is Christmas 2015, Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. Imagine everyone's surprised when a time portal opens up in Sydney Cove. Actually, didn't we listen to this? Didn't we do this like a week ago?
Yes.
We announced the novel a week or two ago.
But I don't think they had the fact that Bernice was going to be in there yet.
We did notice it was the only one that did not mention Clara in the blurb or the cover.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's news
this might
that
be why.
it's
There
Bernice.
may be no Clara, but there's definitely a Bernice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm not going to reread the summary. You can listen to last week's podcast to get the summary, I think. The summary still does not mention Bernice, so... apparently she's in the book, and how she's in the book, we don't know.
Well, Bernice Summerfield will also be appearing in an upcoming audio drama from Big Finish, coming in December. Doctor Who, All-Consuming Fire, continues Big Finish's run of special adaptations of the Virgin New Adventures that were first published in the early 90s. And in fact, this release will feature two Big Finish champions, as the 7th Doctor, played by Sylvester McCoy, teams up with the legendary Sherlock Holmes, who is once again portrayed by Nicholas Briggs. And they are aided by their faithful companions Ace, Bernice Summerfield, and Dr. John Watson.
Interestingly, we announced this novelization before Big Finish did a news article on it.
Yes, we did. And my
because
reaction...
when they did the article on the previous one, we announced this.
I think Bill remembers me sighing heavily when we announced it previously.
Yes, until I reminded you that it was a VNA adaptation, and then you took the sigh back.
It still annoys me because it's Doctor Who just kind of goes everywhere, and nobody can really kind of establish which way is the correct way. It still gives me a bit of a migraine. because of course, canonically speaking, Sherlock Holmes was based on the legend of Vastra, Jenny, and Strax. As much as that turns my stomach.
See, I kind of think that's even far-fetched even for the actual franchise. I think that's just something Moffat pulled out of his ass.
It is, but technically speaking, it happened in actual Doctor Who episodes, and is thus stomach churning for me. But what can you
I would
do?
rather have the actual Sherlock Holmes pop up and go, oh, screw that.
I liked the concept of Sherlock Holmes as a fictional character.
Has the Doctor ever met Arthur Conan Doyle? Because
I don't know. I actually one of the stories I was writing. I actually had the Doctor say he used to be friends with Dr. Bell. And if you know the story of Arthur Conan Doyle, it was really Dr. Bell that was kind of the semi-basis for Sherlock Holmes.
Arthur Conan Doyle has appeared in 2 Doctor Who novels and 1 audio story.
So you have Arthur Conan Doyle appearing in 1 set of Doctor Who novels, and his creation, Sherlock Holmes, appearing in another.
He's also referenced in the fact that in a Jago and Lightfoot story, Henry Gordon Jago believes that they might be the inspiration for Sherlock Holmes.
Everybody thinks that they're the inspiration.
Jago and Lightfoot were the kind of the basis for Jenny, Vastra, and Strax in a way.
Now it's Jago, Lightfoot, and Strax.
The universe comes full circle, and I start having to bang my head against the wall.
Full circle is when you get Sherlock, Watson, and Strax, and then we might hear a bellow of rage from Madison.
I felt a disturbance of the Force.
And now it's time for Randy's head to explode.
like the sawdust in your stomach.
You're an ugly dummy, aren't you, Hugo?
Hugo. Yes.
That's a
Make the
reference.
sawdust in your stomach explode. Well, there's another Doctor Who audio drama featuring Colin Baker, the 6th Doctor, and it's called Shield of the Jotun.
Jotun.
Jotun, I believe.
Jotun. It's Norse.
It's,
Jotunheim.
All right. It's spelled with a J and an O with an umlaut over it.
Jotun.
It takes place in 2029 in the desert of Arizona. Says billionaire philanthropist Dr. Hugo Mocht is trying to save the world from climate change. You mean by 2029 we haven't figured that out yet?
Dun,
oh,
dun,
well.
dun.
Do we look like we're getting? It looks like we're getting farther away from figuring it out now. So yes.
I can believe that mostly, because of the way that United States Congress seems to, look the other way. They're still arguing on the fact that it doesn't really exist.
And if you look outside the summer that Wisconsin's currently having, you'd tell these people that they're morons.
Matt, it's hard to tell this year. It's an El Nino year.
The fact that El Nino exists is half that problem already. But anyway.
El Nino has existed since pretty much the birth of the planet, Matt.
What do you mean climate change doesn't exist? Isn't another word for climate change weather? I mean, the fact that the weather changes doesn't that mean the climate is changing too?
Weather is temporary, climate is permanent.
Oh.
Or as close to permanent as it's going to get in the case of climate change.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're a bit off topic there.
Way off topic.
We're starting to fall into politics here, people.
We're running off into the tundra.
It shouldn't be a political topic, but anyway. Want to give us the blurb?
Me?
Yes, you. You were reading it.
Okay, so, the blurb. 29 AD, in the desert of Arizona, billionaire philanthropist Dr. Hugo Mocht is trying to save the world from climate change. But his great project to scrub the sky clean with nano-atomic machines grinds to an unexpected halt when his diggers break into something unexpected. A Viking burial barrow containing 8 corpses, a mysterious shield, and an even more mysterious inscription, and a yet more mysterious traveler in time and space known only as the Doctor. And that's not even the strangest part of Dr. Mock's day. Soon it'll begin to snow. Soon the Doctor and his girl Friday, Mrs. Constance Clark, will come face to face with an ancient horror in the blizzard. A frost giant in need of a new body, in need of flesh.
Yep, Jotunheim was the land of the frost giants.
Doctor Who Shield of the Jotun is available to pre-order now.
So while the 12th Doctor is dealing with Odin, the 6th Doctor is over there dealing with the frost giants.
Yeah, I suspect when this audio is over, the Dr. Mott will turn around and get hit on the head by Thor's hammer as it falls out of the sky. And there on the ridge will be Agent Coulson going, "Found it."
We got a few other short pieces that we want to discuss, but don't really want to go into have any need to go into great detail on. BBC has released a new 29-second condensed trailer for Series 9, consisting essentially of shortened bits of the previously released trailers.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly trailer 2.
Tiny Rebel Games, who had previously announced the intent to do so, have gone ahead and launched the latest version of the mobile and Facebook-based game Doctor Who Legacy, including the new Sonic Adventures story arc and Doctor Who Legacy Kids. So if you're a fan or have kids that you think will be interested in, go ahead and check it out.
I've started playing that again recently.
I've been contemplating it.
That's all I'm saying.
Due to bonus features taking up more space than was expected, Panda Storm Pictures, the distributor of Doctor Who DVDs in Germany, has announced that Season 22 will be split into 2 parts, meaning that the new schedule for the now 3 volumes of 6 Doctor DVDs will be for the dates of November 27, February 16, and May 27 of the upcoming year-ish time span.
So it's like Spaceballs. Volume 1, Volume 2, The Search for More Money, and Volume 3, The Search for Even More Money. Just saying.
Yeah. The latest reports of circulation figures for Doctor Who Magazine and Doctor Who Adventures indicate a fairly substantial drop in circulation for the period of January through June. However, as this is the time of year when circulation tends to drop due to the most recent episode having been 9 months ago, this is not very surprising news.
Also not surprising to me, I predicted stuff like this would drop, considering it is neither an anniversary year, nor is it a new Doctor. And both those kind of major events tend to bump up subscription sales. Technically, it's the 10th anniversary of New Who, but they're not really hyping that.
True, but even if you look at the in the figures that at least the Doctor Who News had, if you look at this time of year, or this period, the first half of the year, every year that there's not a season during that period, sales drop. So there wasn't a season this first half of the year, sales dropped, kind of to be expected.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking that the amount of people that resubscribe is not going to be as many as there was last year, because last year, of course, there was all that new Doctor shininess, and the year before it was the 50th anniversary shininess, and this year it's kind of the 10th anniversary for New Who has came and went. So really, it's kind of not really anything special going on other than it's a new season of Doctor Who.
Right. And our final news piece is that as of this past Sunday, the 23rd, marked the 50th anniversary The 50th anniversary of the first Peter Cushing Dalek film, Doctor Who and the Daleks, on its release in United Kingdom cinemas. It was based, well, we'll be going into detail with that later, but it was adapted by Milton Subotsky from Terry Nation's 1964 serial script, and directed by Gordon Fleming.
And it wasn't it like Royal Studios or somebody that did it originally?
Let's see, I'm pretty sure the rights have moved around since then, but let me see.
It originally was Royal, but I'm not sure. I know for the American release, when it came to DVD, I'm trying to remember what the name was. It's the company that released a lot of DVDs. They had the sailboat on it.
In Britain, it was distributed by British Lion. In the U.S., it was distributed by Continental.
Continental.
I'm surprised it really got...
The company was AARU Productions, which does not have a Wikipedia link. I'm not really familiar with them.
Well, I know the second movie was done by Sheffield Studios, but I think the first one was done by Royal.
The word Royal does not come up in the Wikipedia article, so I think you might be mistaken.
So it might have been old Sheffield.
I know that the DVD that Matt got was released by Studio Canal, which shocked the hell out of me.
Of course, that might have been like a tiny window that they had the rights to it.
Yeah, apparently it was.
By the way, and actually, I do believe this is correct. Wikipedia mentions that David Whittaker had an uncredited role in writing this. I do believe he did act as an advisor and possibly script part of the co-writer of the script for this movie. So that does seem to be about right.
I did note David Whittaker in the credits. So
he was the editor of the initial script that Terry Nation had submitted, as he was script editor for Doctor Who at that time.
So he might have helped advise some script edits.
Right. For instance, anything involving Mercury is almost definitely David Whittaker's involvement. And that about covers us for the news. However, you might have noticed in our opening that, yes, the movie that just turned 50 is the Doctor Who story that we are covering today, as part of our final leg of Dalek stories.
And that's very interesting, because we did not know that when we scheduled this. It was a pure serendipity.
Yes.
Well, yes, if you want to not make us look impressive, I guess you could say that.
Hey, I'd rather be honest here.
Honestly, I've been watching enough Moffat Who that I almost find it believable that, you know, we did our podcast and then the Doctor went back in time to make sure that the day we did our podcast was on the week of the anniversary of the movie. But,
let's not bootstrap paradox ourselves, please. Are we going to have to timestamp bootstrap paradox stamps for the upcoming season? Because you know how much Moffat loves them, so.
We can have a counter.
Yeah. I think Randy needs a personal counter for these things. Especially since he's the one bothered by them the most.
It's the fact that it's becoming an overused cliche for him. It really is. Anyway, we should probably move on. Let's see. Yeah, it's we're about 50 minutes in now, so probably be a good idea. Well, I don't know. Was there anything else anybody wanted to say about this?
Nothing that wouldn't be covered in our actual review of it.
Right.
You know, I was trying to find the backstory of how this movie even happened.
Yes.
So you want a little bit of the backstory then?
Yeah.
That was actually from my extras disc.
Did this have the BBC's blessing?
This had Terry Nation's blessing. Terry Nation essentially wanted to take the Daleks to the next step. Terry Nation always wanted at least a theatrical level for the Daleks because he thought the Daleks are really what pushed Doctor Who out into the open, and it kind of was at first. Daleks is what caught on.
They would have needed more than Terry Nation's blessing to even use the concepts of Doctor Who and TARDIS.
Right, yeah, I think they did purchase the rights from the BBC.
They probably did.
Disney had wanted to make a Doctor Who movie prior to this, but did not end up doing so for whatever reason. Possibly because they were not a British developer.
Let's think about that for a moment. Disney's Doctor Who.
Would have been interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely would not have let the rights expire.
Considering what, and we're talking 1960s Disney, not today's Disney.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the people that were doing things like, Wonderful World of Disney at the time, who didn't really have a major theatrical studio behind them that wasn't an animation studio. Because Disney, I don't think, purchased a major live act. Actually, no, they did have.
They had major live action ones. They had Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and they also had Mary Poppins, which were all huge hits by them.
Yes, but weren't they all? Didn't they also do the Flubber movies like just the decade before?
I don't think so.
I know that Mary Poppins was 1964. Let's see here.
And
of course, I'm getting the Robin Williams version, which I know is
actually,
not very
did they do Flubber?
That's contemporary. The Absent-Minded Professor, starring Fred MacMurray, was a Walt Disney Productions in 1961.
Oh.
I think the first live-action Disney film was Treasure Island.
So, yeah, they had Buena Vista distribution at the time. And Walt Disney Productions was their live-action studio. I'd forgotten about Walt Disney Productions.
Yeah, I remember Treasure Island. That was a pretty good version of Treasure Island.
Because I think they lost Walt Disney Production for a while. Because they weren't really making anything live-action, I think, from like the 70s. Yeah, by the way, you are right. Treasure Island in 1950 is the first Walt Disney production.
Right.
Very good one, too. As I recall of it. It's been 20 years.
Yeah, and then after a while, they stopped making anything new. I think that's probably what happened, is they stopped making live-action productions between, like, 1963 and 1983. They really did not have a live-action studio.
Well, yeah, 1964 was Mary Poppins. They were active for a while.
Yeah, that was probably the last one then. I was guessing 63.
Right.
But no, it might have been 64 because I don't think there was anything from Mary Poppins to when Touchstone Pictures was formed in 83.
Just imagine if they spent the latter half of the 60s and the early 70s doing Doctor Who live-action movies.
That would have been interesting, to say the least.
Very interesting.
I don't think they were focused on Daleks being Disney. I think they wanted to do something else, but I don't know. I don't know if it was ever really
the whole concept. First of all, what would Disney have actually done to the intellectual property of Doctor Who? Would they have kept it a police box? Or would it have become an earlier version of Bill and Ted where they're traveling through time in a phone booth? Because that's what they knew American audiences would see and understand what it was.
Right.
But at the same time, they've kept things pretty British before for the previous things like Mary Poppins, which again were very successful.
Or would they have truly Americanized it and made it a car? I mean, not that Americans are the only ones to use a car, but I think we tend to use cars in quite a lot of concepts.
Mm-hmm. Worse yet, if they had kept the character of the Doctor British, would they have stereotyped him British? So he would have come out sounding all Cockney.
Ah, Dick Van Dyke as the Doctor.
Yes. Or would they have actually gone the same route as Studio Royal and basically have made Doctor Who a continuation of their Absent-Minded Professor series in a way? The Absent-Minded Professor invents a time machine.
Or would they have taken Gene Wilder off of Willy Wonka and made him the Doctor instead?
That would have been the best possible idea, except for the fact that Disney had nothing to do with Willy Wonka at that time.
No, but they could. I mean, but if they distracted him and bought him out and made him the Doctor 5 years earlier, he would have been making Doctor Who movies instead.
Which I've always said, Gene Wilder, if he had managed to do that same manic personality that he did as Willy Wonka, would have made the most amazing Doctor. He would have been unbelievable. But, you know, this is all speculation.
Anyway, so where were we? Oh, we were trying to talk a little bit about what the setup for this. So, obviously they bought up the rights to use the name Doctor Who, TARDIS, some of the character names, etc. But the main reason why that happened was because Terry Nation wanted to move the Daleks out to be their own thing, and this was his big step to trying to do that. He managed to get one of the studios in Britain to agree to the ideas, and with that, the studio was also obviously looking to get somebody with a big name to them, at least one major actor to play the starring role, in particular of the Doctor, or in this case, Doctor Who. They originally wanted to bring in Hartnell, but Hartnell was already having trouble trying to even keep up with his lines in regular Doctor Who serials, and he just didn't have the time nor the energy to do a movie in the meantime.
And he was working 50 weeks a year.
So the alternative was to find someone who at least looked a little bit like him, but also had some street cred when it came to being an actor who made a lot of good movies. Peter Cushing was already doing Frankenstein and Dracula for the Hammer Studios, and obviously between movies he would have a little gap here and there and would do side movies. So they managed to get a hold of him. He totally agreed to it, and they zipped him right in to start filming for the Doctor. As long as you got a director, you got a story, and you got a main actor, more or less the rest just kind of falls into place, and they managed to finally push it into theaters. After about, 2 years after the original? A year, 2 years?
About a year and a half. Because Doctor Who and the Daleks was very early, 64. And if this is the 50th anniversary from last Sunday, that would have been August 1965.
So yeah, about a year and a half. Also, it should also be stated that in that year and a half, the love of Daleks was insane. Daleks had coloring books. Daleks had variety of lines of toys. They had inflatable Daleks, the wind-up Daleks, just regular metal die-cast Daleks. They were everywhere in Britain.
And they did not yet have a signature phrase.
They didn't have a signature. Actually, no. The TV show they already were doing Exterminate.
No,
by this
they were
point.
Not. Well, maybe by
the second story, yes, they were. And the second story would have been out by this point. They didn't have it for the first movie, sadly.
Yeah. By the way, looking it up, apparently the studio bought the option to make the story and 2 sequels from Terry Nation and the BBC for £500.
So I did hear that they were planning a third one, but for a reason, the plans for it fell through, and they gave up on it.
Yeah, because the third movie would have been either Master Plan or The Chase.
I think they were actually leaning towards doing The Chase, but also I think a lot of what they were also planning was to actually make finally a solo adventure for the Daleks. But then a lot of people start going, why would we want a solo adventure for the Daleks? What happened to the Doctor? At the time, at least.
And apparently Cushing would have loved to have made a third movie.
Not surprising.
Yeah.
I just had this idea.
Apparently he really loved the role.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the few times he actually got to play a decent hero outside of Van Helsing.
And Van Helsing has his dark sides.
Yeah. But this was a pure-blooded, family-friendly hero that he got to play for a change.
And this was he even left out most of the Doctor's dark side in his role as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was very, very, very light on it. And this is an actor who grew up wanting to basically play white hat cowboys.
I just had this idea of the speculation of Christopher Lee as the Master.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. I think we've discussed that idea a few times, and it would have been absolutely brilliant.
If the Master would have been made in time, and they were still doing movies, that would have been fantastic.
I've seen fan posters of Doctor Who and the Master featuring Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. And it would have been absolutely brilliant if they had done it.
How they would have managed to fit it into the continuity they made is another question entirely.
Well, the Master would just be another evil scientist.
Yes, I know, but I mean...
what else did you need?
Anyway, we should probably get to this... We should probably get to the summary so we can actually start discussing the movie in total.
Probably, yes. It is
okay.
On 1 hour point.
So, care to start get the stopwatch, Matt?
Okie doke. Stopwatch. Ready? Start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so a young man by the name of Ian Chesterton goes to visit his girlfriend's house on the plans to take her out to a date. He meets the rest of her family, her younger sister Susan, and her grandfather, an elderly scientist called Doctor Who. After making a total ass of himself for about 5 minutes, crushing the chocolates he bought, and nearly breaking one of the Doctor's latest inventions, the Doctor shows him his latest project, a machine he calls TARDIS, which he has in his back garden, a big blue police box. While inside, and with the rest of the family joining him, he accidentally starts off TARDIS, and they wind up on a strange new world. For the rest of the summary, you should see our April 8th podcast, number 101, The Daleks, because the plot is pretty much exactly the same, only shortened. The end.
As you said, the end, 1.03.
Really, nothing more needs to be said.
1 minute and 3 seconds.
So, really, that's all that really needs to be said about the summary for this. So let's kind of move on. What did we like overall?
Going to me, I assume.
Yes.
So overall, I like that despite the fact that it's more or less a re-ushering of the same story, that they actually still kept it very lively. Like, they did a lot of little touches to help keep things interesting and moving. They had a lot to work with, especially since it was actually a feature-length movie and so forth. But in particular, the little character twists that we wouldn't have gotten in the original version, and also far more movement with the actual film itself.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more shine and polish put into a lot of everything that you actually got to see on screen this time.
All right. Bill?
So, I'm sounded like you were saying something different at the end than you were. So what specifically were you saying? Was
Essentially, I like the overall new polish that was given to the already pre-existing story.
Okay, so you said to the script?
To the script as well as a little bit to the visuals, but I didn't nail anything in particular. Just overall, I like the new representation.
Okay, because mine is, I'm going to say the production values, in that this is, in terms of the props, the sets, and everything, it is the best looking Who that we get until at least 1996, if not later. It looks a lot more complete and a lot, like there's a film budget to it, a lot more than the wobbly sets that Doctor Who will have throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
All right. Tim?
I really liked Peter Cushing in this movie. His performance reminded me of, maybe this is too simplistic, but a friendly William Hartnell.
Yeah, I actually have to agree with you, Tim. That was going to be my favorite thing, too, was Cushing's Doctor.
Sorry.
He was essentially the essence of Hartnell, without the bastardness that Hartnell had in his first couple of seasons. All the grouchiness and all the grouchiness and crotchetiness that's known for Hartnell's was taken out, but all the basic mannerisms and way of speaking was still there.
That does make it very interesting, because he's still a creep in that he still steals the I forget the name of the piece. I mean, not steals it, but he lies about
the
it
fluid
being
link.
The fluid link. And he's so nice and friendly about it that no one can even get mad at him.
Yeah, we can't even get mad at him during this version.
Where Hartnell does it, and you're just like, you asshole.
Right.
The second he fesses up to it, he is so contrite and so genuinely apologetic that you immediately like, oh, okay, that's okay.
It's okay, Doc. We understand, but we gotta solve the problem at hand.
Was Hartnell still the Doctor when the movie was made, or
Yes.
Yes.
He was still the Doctor when both movies were made.
Yep. Actually,
he might have been starting to get out the door. Actually, no.
By the time the second movie aired, he might have left. I have to check, but he was definitely the Doctor when it was made.
He was the Doctor when it was made, but I'm not sure when it was released.
I'm checking that now.
I'm actually probably a step ahead of you.
It was released in 26 July 1966. Let me check when the 10th.
So no, he would have still been there.
Yeah, he still would have been in.
Because 10th Planet was December 66.
October, but close enough.
Hartnell.
He was in there for a couple months yet.
Or Troughton didn't technically take over, I thought, till 67.
Yeah,
it should have been November, because it would have been the following story. So it would have been November of 66 that Troughton took over.
That quickly? Wow.
Well, remember
there wasn't a season break. It was the same season, the 10th Planet going straight into Power of the Daleks.
I don't quite remember that, but okay. But yeah, he was still the Doctor for a couple months.
Okay, yeah, they do have him listed as 66. Most places I see have Troughton listed as 67 to 69. And then have Pertwee listed as starting at 70. But he wasn't there for long in 66. So yeah, when Daleks Invasion Earth, it was all still Hartnell. He was the only Doctor they had as a basis. And still, that technically means Peter Cushing was the first actor to play the Doctor with a different personality.
Just ever so slightly, though.
Yeah.
It's just more of an altered version of the original.
Unless there were short sketches on something like Blue Peter or the British equivalent of SNL or something. But barring minor things like that,
not in the 60s.
Peter Cushing would be the first.
Yeah, he was the first, and he I mean, it was still essentially Hartnell, but there is still a slightly different. He has kind of the manicness that we would see in later Doctors like Baker and Tennant.
A bit.
A little bit.
And whereas
Yeah, whereas Hartnell would, always walk very gingerly, very clearly the older man who has trouble, being very active, whereas Cushing did not have that and was a bit more active for it.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that was part of the act or if that was part of Hartnell's illness, honestly.
I think it might have
I
been
mean, I
just
know by
Hartnell's
the end
age
it
at
was
the time.
definitely part of the illness, but I'm not sure about in the 60s, like in 63.
well, he was supposed to be the old grandfather in 63.
Yeah.
I mean, that was
No,
the role he
right,
was
no, I mean,
given.
Right, but I'm not sure if his actual condition affected that or if it was entirely the act.
It was entirely the act at first. He wasn't even diagnosed until, I think, 64. Maybe 65. Anyway. I'm going to stick with Tim on this. That was what I liked was Cushing's doctor, and going to things you don't like. And I have a couple for this, so we'll see if you nail them both before you get to me.
Things I
Matt.
didn't like. One of the things that does bug me about this one is apparently we don't have very skilled Dalek readers.
The
The
Dalek
Daleks,
voices. Yes.
the Dalek voices were in of themselves were all right, but they took too long and talked like this.
Not
Lots of dead air.
they're too clipped.
Yeah.
Aaron and I were watching this last night because at that point she didn't know she was going to be sick.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, one of the things that we noticed is there was only the black Daleks seemed to have any knowledge of how Daleks were supposed to sound.
Yeah.
The red Daleks and everyone else talked very monotone, clipped, and drew out every syllable in that clipped tone, even words that we know Daleks would not draw out.
Yeah.
Right.
And that made it very long. Only the black Dalek ever, and he only got it half right, would actually run words together like Daleks occasionally do.
One thing that threw me off a little bit, but I kind of excuse it because I can't remember what it was like in the original serial, was when he was blinded and instead of saying my vision is impaired, it was something like I cannot see. I like it, and it was like it was more drawn out. There were more words to it, but I can't remember
I
the
can't remember
Actually-
original
exact
Terry
phrasing
Nation
either.
version.
To me, that sounded exactly like it was supposed to sound when he
Yeah.
started talking fast.
No, just because generally, especially after this point, it became pretty standard that the Dalek would be my vision is impaired,
Mhm.
and that would be how they described that situation every time. But I don't remember what it was like in '64.
I can't remember exactly.
I would actually love to take this and kind of watch bits scene by scene, because there are some scenes that I like better in this movie,
Right.
and a few scenes I like better in the original.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And if you could recolor certain parts from the original,
To
I
make
would
them
love-
match.
yes. And definitely, though, I'd be using, I think, the original Dalek voices. Although I remember even the original Dalek voices didn't quite get the hang of it for a couple of episodes.
Yeah, but I think they were a little bit closer in the TV show than they were here.
Yep. As I was saying, they're a bit clipped, and sometimes a Dalek will draw a certain word out. Instead of just being, he'll, hang that syllable for a bit, and none of that was present, except in the Black Dalek. All right, Bill, what didn't you like?
I'm going to go with the fact that the characters are so much less developed, not just because they don't have the previous story in them, but just because, especially Ian and Barbara, for instance, I could not tell you a defining trait of either of those characters.
Oh, I
That
could.
especially stands out when in the original serial, you would have Ian, pissed off at the Doctor for doing dickish things and, challenging him and things of that nature in addition to the story, whereas here he's just, okay,
Oh no, there's character there.
Yeah,
Sadly,
I
it's
have
not
to-
all good.
I have to argue, and this was one of the two things I had picked out as not liking, is what the writers had done to poor Ian. because Ian, who was in the original Doctor Who serial, was the major male lead. You know, the hero.
Right.
He became the slapstick comic relief. He became Jerry Lewis.
Only less funny.
Only less funny. He would stagger all over the place, break stuff, and even great Ian scenes. There is a particular scene where, in the original, Ian comes up with the notion of taking one of the Thal women as a hostage to the doctor. They give most of that to the doctor and still let Ian get punched for it. It's just like his entire purpose there is to take pratfalls and act like an idiot. And for me, it was really kind of, no. Barbara and Susan were a little bit generic, in my opinion. Susan more forgivable by the fact that she's there, where they've reduced her age from 16 to 12.
I think she had the same story roles.
She more or less had the same story role, and she was definitely the more spirited of the now both granddaughters.
Whereas Barbara, unless I missed it, her major contribution to the serial was taken out from the movie, unless I missed that scene.
Yeah.
Her only contribution was the being part of the group that went out to sneak into the Dalek base, and even that was shared with like 3 other people. So
the main thing that I can say she did in this movie is she was the one who ran up to hug / whatever she was doing to Ian to cause him back over the lever in the beginning that Ian got yelled at for.
And caused him to end up on Scarrow.
It was Ian's fault.
Yep.
Okay, so Tim, what did you not like about this movie?
The thing that really sticks in my mind that I don't like is just the fact that it is nothing but a retelling of the original, the original TV show episode, and it's like they kept the same story, but with the minor changes that just. They did, the Doctor. The Doctor is a human being. I just kept asking myself why.
I think the major reason why is because they wanted it to make it so it stood on its own, but even then it's still kind of convoluted. They just wanted to make a fancier, flashier version of the already existing, really popular TV show serial.
And it being a film copy would be easier to redistribute to theaters every so often.
Also would get the name of Doctor Who around, even though it's not exactly Doctor Who.
Yeah. Because remember, back in that day, when BBC was airing these serials, they had no intention of ever re-airing them.
Right.
Whereas movies, you can pass around movies. You can get people to buy rights really easy for movies.
So that was part of the concept, but even so, yeah, I really wish they would have, spruced up the plot a bit.
Yeah. In particular, I would have liked if they would have actually kept some of the characters the way they were. The Doctor, I don't mind those changes to the Doctor. That made him a far more likable protagonist, to be honest. A little less of the Dark Doctor and a little more of what we came to expect of him in his later seasons. But Ian got turned into just a useless putz, and Barbara was completely void of anything interesting going on.
I just think the movie should have been its own original story.
Yeah, but that would have. So you're saying
if they just took the Doctor Who name and made an original story rather than adapting a serial?
Right.
Yeah, but they would have probably had to get Terry Nation to write it.
Yeah.
And that would have taken more time and more money, once again, on that.
Yeah, this was really done on the cheap. Even by today's standards, the budget was moderate at best.
Yeah, the vast majority of the money probably went to sets and Daleks.
And Peter Cushing's fee.
And Peter Cushing's fee, yeah. Since he was the big name for the movie.
All right, so what I didn't like about the movie, and Bill got my big one with Ian. But the other thing I didn't like, and this is a mixed bag, was the Thals.
It's a mixed bag, yeah.
It's a mixed bag. Their costumes are tons better than the original serial. Their makeup, however, is complete fail.
Yeah, that was weird.
With the blonde Mo Howard bowl cut and enough eyeshadow to look like freaking David Bowie in his Ziggy Stardust era.
That's exactly what I was thinking watching this, but I'm like, wait, wasn't this before Bowie?
Yes, it was, by about 10 years.
Yeah,
Maybe that's where I got the idea.
The first time you see the Thal in there, I'm like, oh, look, it's Legolas. After that, every time they take a pause, I would start breaking into Life on Mars at random. It's a god-awful small affair.
To the girl with the mousy hair.
Yeah, we ripped the crap out of this movie because we were watching it the night before GeekCon.
Dance, magic dance.
In there, and every time we could make a David Bowie reference went in. Hey, look, it's the Bog of Unbearable Stench. Or it's the two Thals, and David Bowie and Ziggy Stardust have a conversation.
Yes.
But I'm the star. But I'm the name that everyone remembers.
We were pretty bad. Other than, if they had kept the basic makeup that the Thals used in the original and gave them these outfits, it would have been a success.
Yeah, if they would have dropped the eyeshadow and maybe kept some of the wigs and then went with the complete total outfits, that would have been perfect. But why the deep eyeshadow, I will never know, other than the fact that it was the 60s, man.
It's the 60s, man. Everyone was doing it.
Maybe someone in the makeup staff or the director complained that they looked too much like humans, and they had to therefore add excessive makeup to make them look alien. But
where's my guideline?
Well, you notice that they were also wearing some kind of powder tone because they looked kind of gray-green. I would have, accused them of trying to make them look like Vulcans, only, Vulcans wouldn't be around yet for another year and a half. Or
so technically, they could have
gotten
away with it.
So they're just making it look like things that aren't out yet, which I guess kind of works for a futuristic story, but not in the right way.
Yeah, if they would have just gone for the basic slight powdering of the skin, that would have been more than enough to get away with it. And maybe it would have still been overkill, but
they could have stuck with the Mo Howard Beatles wigs too.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't that bad, but the eyeshadow.
It's just the eyeshadow stuff, yeah.
So, all right, scenes that you liked, Matt.
Oh, actually, there's quite a few scenes in this. Despite our nitpicks, I guess the first one I would probably mention off the top of my head that I really liked was some of the fighting sequence towards the end when they finally have their big brawl out with the Daleks.
Okay.
Lots
Yeah,
of explosions,
a lot of that
fun.
was pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Erin had also pointed those out as some of her favorite scenes. So, Bill, how about you? What was your favorite scene?
No, I really wasn't keeping an eye out for favorite scenes because in my brain I had kind of already seen this story. I've been trying to think of one since we've been talking about it, and I'm really not sure I can narrow down really a favorite scene. So I may have to pass just because nothing's really coming to mind.
Okay, Tim?
The scene that I remember that right now is when they're climbing the matte painting.
Oh, the really nice matte painting, yes.
Yes, the matte
Yes.
paintings on this are very good. The moon behind Scarrow is nice, and that matte painting, you can look down, you can see the swamp, you can see the city.
You can see,
cool.
yeah, you can see the city and the swamp merging together in all one big, huge scene from a far distance away. It was really nicely done.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the mountain they're climbing up, it's just good from a technical standpoint.
Yep. Okay, so my favorite scene, ironically, is my least favorite scene from the original serial, and that is inside the cave.
Oh yeah.
For exactly the same reasons as the fact that in the original one you couldn't tell what the hell they were going on. They were wandering around in basically pitch black, with just enough lighting that you can see the character. Here you can see the walls, you can see stuff. You get to the crevasse, and you can actually see down the crevasse, and it looks like a crevasse. So.
Yeah, whereas the original, you just kind of saw them jumping, and that was about it. You had to take their word for it.
Yep, and what was even better was the fact that they took that scene, and it's one of the few things where they reversed what happened in the original, because in the original, that the cowardly fall fell to his doom, and in this one, you think he falls to his doom, but turns out he was all right and clinging onto a lower ledge.
Because he knew that they couldn't pull him to safety, so they had another chance at it and got him to safety this time.
Yep. So they completely reversed that scenario, and I thought that was very cool. I'm not quite dead. I'm getting better.
I'm getting better. It hurts on
here.
here.
Stone did in a moment.
Could you put me up? I suddenly don't want to die.
Thought of anything yet, Bill?
Now, really, the only scene that stands out to me when I think about it is, I guess, the scene where the Doctor meets Ian, and I think that's also largely just because it shows the new Doctor in the first in the one completely original scene. Well, not only one, but the main completely original scene.
Essentially putting a foothold in for our current new Doctor.
Right.
All right.
I would say the only reason it would be a favorite is because it's the first time you really get the chance to take a look at this Doctor's personality.
All right, so scenes that you don't like.
Oh.
Starting with you, Matt.
I'm trying to hone in on one. I would argue one of the talking scenes before they send Susan out in particular always hits me in the "oh God, please," especially when it comes to Dalek talk, because it's an entire section of the Daleks talking a lot, and these are probably the worst that they were ever at doing the Dalek dialogue.
It's basically where they core drop a lot of plot exposition on you.
It's not even just that, it's also because it's the slowest dialogue read the Daleks get the entire movie. You just feel them hitting the grindstone.
It's not like I said before, it's not so much that they're talking slow, because Daleks do talk slow. It's the fact that they're so clipped between what they're saying, it makes it feel slower.
Well, yeah, again, it's not that the Daleks talk extremely fast to begin with, but it's the fact that this is like the most clipped of all the really clipped feeling stuff that they ever did in the entire movie. It just, you could run trains through the pauses.
And yeah, also the fact that they're always talking like there's no rise.
There is no rise. There is no emotion. Just longer pauses.
It's like having Ben Stein play a Dalek.
Or dry red eyes. Clear eyes is awesome.
Except with this, it wouldn't be awesome. It would be awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, because they break in between every syllable. Normally, there are certain... Daleks do that between each word when they talk, except for certain words. Daleks have no trouble saying exterminate.
That's something that comes out very
Makes
quickly,
perfect.
yes.
Yeah. And there's other words, too, that they say fast. But those
Obey.
words... Obey is one.
Other words that they practice a lot.
Yes.
Yes.
Essentially the dialogue that they're used to a lot, they can speed through pretty quickly.
But there's none of those words that they would have. In the original one, for instance, when they say radiation pretty, radiation.
Radiation.
But here it's radiation. It just gets on your nerves.
Say it already, don't take 5 years to do it.
Also, in that same act, there's certain words that the Daleks also draw out. You will be destroyed. They put that oi, they bring it out. They let it hang, but there's none of that in their voices either. You're just hearing the same single syllable clip, 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 and you just want to go sleep.
But yeah, that particular spot before they sent Susan out to get the radiation drugs was probably the worst that they did the dog voices in the entire movie. That one always makes me cringe.
All right. Bill, least favorite scene?
I'm going to go with the scene we were talking about earlier, but from the other perspective, where the doctor admits that, he was lying about the fluid link, and Ian is like, I don't have any personality to react to that with. Okay.
Yep,
And I'm just
okay.
Like, can't you be a little annoyed? Like, even if you're not going to be as pissed off as the Ian in the show, can you at least
be a bit bothered by it at
this fact?
first? Yeah.
All right, Tim, how about you?
I seem to recall there's one scene with Ian where usually, like, when he breaks something, it's because something bumped into him or, like, he was leaning on a door and someone opened the door. But I think there was one scene where he just falls down for no reason. Like, not because of any external thing, he just falls. I think that it was
stumbles or something. Yeah.
Yeah, when they're in the forest, or it's when he like breaks this dragon statue. I think that's it.
Oh, I forget what happened, but some sort of train reaction led to a branch hitting him and pushing him into it.
Oh.
But it was like the most convoluted way to break the branch and send him plummeting into the thing to begin with. So.
That scene was another one that I liked better in the original.
Yeah.
Because it had all the same elements of the original, but how they brought it off and how the characters reacted were different.
If they would have had
Ian did the same thing. Susan was holding this flower, and they were looking at it. Barbara screamed, and Ian just jams it back into Susan's arms, breaking it, and dashes off. That's the true in both ones. But in the original, Ian comes up short by the monster, approaches it warily, and realizes that it's petrified. Here, he staggers through, knocks himself a loop on a branch, and blunders into it, breaking the thing because he's apparently an absolute and total klutz with no redeeming value whatsoever. All right. I actually have a few least favorite scenes.
Go on.
Give me a second to see if I can get these in order. One of my least favorite scenes is where everybody's going through doors in the city, and Ian's door refuses to open. And then they go through this long 5-minute scene of him sitting down, and the door opens because apparently it's attached to a pressure trigger.
I tried to race at it, yeah.
And then he tried to race at it and it closed, and it just hit me as so completely and totally convoluted that it makes no sense. First of all, why would the Daleks even have this? Because they obviously can't move fast enough to do it, and they would not usually work in tandem like that. The entire thing was there for the sole purpose of making Ian look like a complete and total goob.
Pretty much.
I'm sitting here watching this, and you realize that somewhere on the back of there's a Dalek sitting there at a control panel just taking the piss out of it.
Ha ha. Silly biped. Ha
A second scene I didn't like was when they broke the camera in the cell.
Oh.
And again, this is another thing where the original one was so much better than the movie. Because in the original one, they staged a fight to break the camera by accident. And here, they just pretty much sit right up going, oh, look, here's the camera. Here's a screwdriver. And pull it apart. And it's like, seriously? All the reason for doing that so that the Daleks would think it's an accident. Even if the Daleks didn't buy it in the original one, and you're just going to just, to its face, go, no. It made no real sense to me that they wouldn't at least try to make it look like an accident. And I think the third one was another scene that I liked a lot better in the original, and that was the Daleks suffering from radiation sickness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only because the scene that was in the original was so good, with the seeing it through the eye stalk and it going in and out of focus as the Dalek is slowly, losing its, coherency. And here they just have the Daleks watching on a monitor as they're spinning around and dying. It just really kind of fell flat, especially with the Dalek voices not being able to convey any of Dalek hysteria. It was kind of flat and not needed. So those were my least favorite scenes. Any of you all have any comments to make or any addendums you wish to add?
I think also the crushing of the petrified animals also second up on my list.
Oh,
as I recall.
I had another one too. I forgot. The swamp. The swamp was was nowhere near as frightening as it was in the original, and the water was clear. Where the guy was drowning in the swamp, you should have been able to see him drowning because the water was so damn clear.
Yeah, whereas this was gray water.
Yep, and it had none of the feeling of horror that the original did.
Yeah, they kind of also cut back the Cthulhu monster.
Yeah, that's kind of too bad too, because that was what made the swamp so terrifying. So while there are some scenes I like better, there's a great many that I think the original serial actually did better, regardless of the lack of sets and lack of color.
And lack of budget.
Oh, and one other thing. Why were the Dalek lights going on and off on nearly every scene, like they were running blues and twos?
I don't know why they decided to do that for this movie, but I'm glad they decided to cut that for the second one.
Yeah, well, we'll discuss that next week.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm watching them go through corridors and stuff, and I started going, woo, 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 every time I started seeing them. Because they looked like patrol Daleks running...
Yeah, just sirens of their kind running through the room, yeah.
It was...
It kind of takes back the menace, if you will. Kind of have to expect one of those dogs to walk up to you and ask you how fast you think you were going.
Oh yeah, there was one other scene. the scene where the black Dalek is addressing the other Daleks, and the camera angle has you a foot in front of the Dalek looking up at him.
Watch the bumps.
It's like, wow, you're trying to get an upskirt shot of a Dalek. That doesn't exactly work.
It doesn't really work, but again, I would pen that to experimentation with filmmaking, which was a thing in the 60s and 70s.
If they had backed the camera up a foot or two,
They would
I
have
think
gotten a better angle, yeah.
they would have gotten a better angle and would have gotten what they were trying to see was this Dalek leader towering over his minions. But they put it way too close, and instead what they get is incredibly awkward. Also, I noticed, Matt, that in this one at least, those Daleks were pretty cheaply made. If you notice when the Daleks turn around, the bumps on the back are not on the same level as the bumps on the front. They're slightly raised, which makes it look kind of cheaply done. It was like
Really?
whoever manufactured the back panels didn't have the same measurements as whoever measured out the front panels. It was.
I'm looking. Here's one back to us. I don't see on that one. Maybe I need a better picture.
It's possible. I noticed it 2-3 times in the movie. The Black Dalek had the same thing where the back panels were just the back set of bumps were slightly off.
I'm looking for it, but I'm not seeing it so far. I've only caught really one with any kind of look at the back, but it was also cast in black, so.
Yeah, it's very hard to catch. You have to actually be looking for it in the movie shots. I don't think I saw that with Daleks Invasion Earth 2050, which looked like they actually rebuilt the Daleks for that one because they looked hell of a lot better.
They obviously put more time and money into it again. Oh, here we go. Here's one. Oh, I can see what you're talking about. Yeah. A couple of those back panels are kind of misaligned a little too high.
Yep.
Somebody wasn't careful with their measuring instruments.
Yep.
They tried, but they were really off in places.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems to be like the same panel on each of the Daleks, too.
Yeah, it's like...
It's just one or two of those back panels are just awkwardly high for some reason.
Well, you know what probably happened is they found out when they were constructing them that some of these panels were off, and they said, just shove them in the back. We don't have time to rebuild them, we don't have time or money to rebuild them, just shove them in the back. One of the things I would like to shout out as being relatively good is the Dalek Command Center set. Where you see, like, the map of Skaro and everything.
It looks a bit like if the Price is Right machine, but at the same time, given the time
I'm not even talking the Price is Right thing. I'm just talking the actual maps you see up there on one of the panels. Looked freaking cool.
Well, you got one thing that's got map panels. You got another area that's all screens with one huge master screen, looking at all the main stuff that they're talking about. And then you got the there's, like I said, the Price is Right wheel, which rotates around and shows you maps. It shows you the Geiger counter, shows you the nuclear bomb time, and everything else in there. It was actually a pretty nicely done set, considering its age.
It looked a lot better than the Dalek Command Center in the original set, but then again, that's budgeting.
That's budget, and that's sets making on a much more shoestring budget compared to this film. Actually, here's a good picture of the set. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and the lava lamps.
Oh, God, the lava lamps.
I love lava lamps.
Oh, God, that was so incredibly cheesy.
Look at the lava lamp. It is the only thing that makes me happy. It is the only thing that contents me in my Dalek life. Lava lamp, lava lamp.
I lava the lava.
Oh, you're punny.
Yep.
All right, so I guess it's time to move along to our final thoughts. I'll start with you, Matt.
By no means perfect. I still consider this at least a good attempt at trying to bring a higher budget to a already existing and fairly decent story. There's still much that could have been done, and a lot of the character changes could have gone without actually happening. In particular, with poor Ian, who just got completely ripped apart. However, we had a really good, solid recreation of the first Doctor as a more likable character just for the sake of a film. And the Daleks, despite a few chintzy panels in the back, actually look pretty decent otherwise.
I don't know, those claws looked pretty chintzy.
They were effective, though. They could grab people. You saw it numerous times.
Actually, if
Didn't
you
they
look...
didn't they get Ian by the throat one time?
They got Ian by the throat at least a couple of times. They managed to grab even Barbara a couple of times.
Yeah, but like when they tried to grab
Barbara,
Susan, if you look close enough, you realize that she's actually maneuvering the claw to grab her, not the other way around.
Once or twice, but you have to really look for it. She was even told by the director, it's kind of hard for these guys to see, so work with them a little bit. We know you could easily break free of them, but just work with them a little bit, and you'll make the scene look a lot better. And again, if you're not looking for it, it's effective. But overall, I wouldn't say this is a complete failure, but it's not a by any stretch of the imagination a perfect attempt at this idea either.
All right, Bill?
This story it fixes a lot of the pacing problems with the original story. In the process, it loses some of the character. Altogether, I think it comes out to be a pretty much even split, looking specifically at the story in question in terms of being fairly equal quality. It loses about as much as it gains in the transition.
Okay, Tim?
I think this works better as just a curiosity rather than a film in and of itself. I think the story was better told in the original TV show. But Peter Cushing's Doctor, if Peter Cushing is canon, then I would accept that his performance should be considered canon.
You really can't do that without canonizing a story. He would have made a great canon Doctor, but you can't say his performance is canon without making the story canon. And while one of the news articles we had earlier mentioned how that was possible, it's mostly just fan wank, really.
Albeit one of the fans doing the wanking was Peter Cushing.
And his choice wasn't even one I agree with, so...
He just wanted to be the Doctor.
Yeah, he just wanted to be the Doctor.
He was a good Doctor. He wanted to be the Doctor. Why shouldn't he be allowed his own delusions?
Because allowing this to be canon would have meant that these events would have had to happen twice. And the fact that Thals look like fucking David Bowie.
The people singing Dance Baby Dance.
Although I do kind of like the idea that someone leaked the story of what actually happened to a film producer or something, and this is the end result.
Yeah, apparently Moffat wanted the actual film posters to be in the vault in Day of the Doctor, according to that. Yeah. that actually would have led credence to the theory that, yeah, Ian and or Barbara had leaked the story to something in an attempt to make a movie. Anyway, so my thought on this is, yeah, this is essentially just a rehashing of a 7-part serial, a 3-hour serial, which they have cut down to less than 2 hours, and that's adding the 10-minute introduction of the Doctor, Ian, etc., and the TARDIS. So you are going to get a loss of story. And you definitely get a loss of character between Ian, Barbara, and Susan, though the Doctor himself seems to get comes out fairly well out of it. The sets are a lot better than their original, and wardrobe is generally as good or better than the original. Makeup, however, was a lot more to be desired.
I'm going to say the Doctor coming off on the better is pretty much due to the fact that Peter Cushing's the best actor, rather than the script giving him that much more character than the others.
True.
Column A, column B.
Anyway, let's go ahead and rate this puppy.
So starting with me, as usual.
Yep. Well, actually, I can say that Aaron gave this a 3.5.
Okay. And actually, I had already decided this before hearing Aaron's number. So here it goes. Normally, given the back and forth that we've had here, I would say that this deserves a 3. However, I will argue that certain strong elements, including but not limited to a very good Doctor, does raise this above just by a little bit. And I would have loved to have seen more of Cushing as the Doctor. So I have to give this a 3.5 as well.
All right. Bill?
I said before that I think this comes out even to the Daleks because what it gains is equal to what it loses. And I do agree that the score that I gave the Daleks, which is a 3.5, is the actual score that I would want to give this. So I'm sticking with the same 3.5.
Whew. So Tim.
Tim?
What score did I give the Dalek serial?
Give me a second.
Was it 3.5 again?
3.5, yep.
Yeah.
Yes. It was you, Tim, Matt, and Bill all gave it a 3.5. Aaron and I gave it a 4.0.
Okay. Oh. I think the first one, the serial, was better, but Peter Cushing's performance raises it up a bit, so that to match. So I'm going to give it a 3.5.
All right.
3.5
so
across the board. So you, Randy.
So is this going to be the 5th in a row or the combo breaker?
Combo breaker.
the 5th. Oh, am I going to give it a 3.5?
I mean,
no, I'm going to have to give this a 3.0. And yes, while Peter Cushing's would raise it higher, the freaking Thalls bring the bar back down because that makeup really suspends my disbelief.
So 3.4?
And then, of course, the loss of character between Ian, the total wreck they make Ian, and the loss of character on Barbara and Susan. I will have to lower this to a 3.0, and that will make it a 3.4 average.
For the record, the Daleks had a 3.7.
So this is
So
just
the end
slightly
result,
lower.
pretty much the difference here. Well, Aaron lowered it from a 4 to a 3.5, and Rand lowered it from a 4 to a 3, compared to the original story.
The rest of us more or less stayed right where we were.
By the way, I have already added the total here, and at a 3.4, Doctor Who and the Daleks is number 70 on our list. Just below Big Finish Terra Firma and just above Silver Nemesis.
Ooh.
In reference point, the Daleks at 3.7 is number 58 on the list. So there are
20 in between, thereabouts.
13 in between. So by our rankings, this is kind of a pale imitation, regardless of the fact that it's in Technicolor over the black and white, of the original Doctor Who and the Daleks.
For some of us, it stays in place. For others, this does pale in comparison, and it's honestly, there's places to really see that.
That will about do it for our coverage of the Doctor Who and the Daleks movie. Take us out, Bill.
Okay. Well, I can't say if you enjoy listening to us talk about Peter Cushing to listen to other things, because there's really nothing else we've done. However, if you enjoy listening to us and want to subscribe, please subscribe to us on twitch.tv/Unearthly Podcast, on Unearthly Podcast on YouTube, and mixcloud.com/n_unearthly_podcast. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter for news and updates. And if you want to help us go and support us, you can go on over to patreon.com/Unearthly Podcast. Don't forget to join us next week as we take a look at Peter Cushing's second appearance in Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD.
This one with 100% more Bernard Cribbins.
Yay, Cribbins!
Hey, Cribbins. Who's up for a game of Cribbins?
Not that bombshell. Good night.
The thing is, he
Nighty
says
night.
that and I hear the Game of Thrones theme. Game of Wilfs.
Alrighty, cutting that there.